Hello, welcome to yet another session of Marriage Chronicles. Today we are tuning in and uzobuhleli nami uMrs Wela sixoxa ngendaba yokuthi why our youth remains unmarried, especially in the church. And ngifuna siyibuke le topic uzobona nje ama results nama points engiwatholile through i-research engiyenzile. Kungenzeka-ke kulokhu engikubhalile nalokhu engizoku-addressa namhlanje kutholakala ukuthi khona engikushiyile. Maybe-ke as a result sigcine siba no-part 2 of this topic. But for today ngifuna sibukisane kulama reasons engiwabhalile ngokusizwa uNkulunkulu, and kubalulekile bantwana baNkulunkulu ukuthi singayi-ignore le reason, singayi-ignore le nto ukuthi bayaqhubeka abantu abashadi bakhona ey'nkonzweni abashadi yindaba. So bantwana baNkulunkulu, into engiyibukile overall throughout my research ebengiyenza ngeke ngabona ukuthi it's because of one thing and one thing only: lack of knowledge. You know, mangabe sifunda la uHosea 4 chapter 4 verse 6 uthi, my people are destroyed because they do not know me. Since you priests refuse to know me, I refuse to recognize you as my priest. So abantu bami bayabhubha ngenxa yokuswela ulwazi. But umnyanga ayibuza kathi hlobo luni lolwazi lolukhulunywa ngalo. Kule New Living Translation ithi, because they do not know God. Ngiyayithanda-ke because there are many forms of knowledge. Abanye bangathi knowing God, abangathi hayi it refers to acquiring knowledge in general. Whichever way you want to look at it, it's lack of knowledge. Whether it's knowledge about God, whether it's knowledge in general. So looking at this, then you see most people do not know about God, do not know what God likes, wants, what is His will, how to please God. Mawusuka-ke kwazini uNkulunkulu ufika endabeni yomshado, which is an institution edesignwe uNkulunkulu, then obvious mangabe ungazi ngoNkulunkulu, ungazi nange-institution ayidesign ukuthi wayidesigna kanje and what were the reasons eyidesigna kanjena, then to the point that yikho-ke kune-confusion engaka namhlanje. Most people, especially within the church setup, they love marriage. They want to get married. But this lack of knowledge about the how to get married, what to do. So when marriage is first introduced to us, it's introduced from an angle of partnership. It's introduced whereby God viewed the situation and is like, you know what? It's not good for a man to be alone. Let me quickly make a helper for him. You know? So, lo mshado lona-ke, if uthema ubekwa wabeka kwi-context of work, wabeka kwi-context of sharing the load, wabeka in the context of abantu who have the common purpose, yini manje eyenza ukuthi sithole konakala? It's because they allowed outside influence. So sithini-ke inyoka mayifika kubona it, did God really say? Yayibona ukuthi yonakalapha. And khona isemon ubabola akayiletha, I think it was back in 2009, athi till today the enemy is asking the same question: did God really say we have to get married? What is wrong with fat and said? What is wrong with divorce? What is wrong with same-sex marriages? Did God really say? That's the question. So when we go back to this verse in Hosea, which says, people are destroyed because of lack of knowledge, it's because we do not question things. We do not acquire knowledge. And in this case, God is even saying through his prophet that it's actually the priest who refuse to know God, or it's priests who refuse to acquire knowledge. So which means It's people ahead of us, people who are in the decision making positions, or people who are in authority or in management. People ahead of us lack knowledge. What they are passing to us as people who are following, inama-gaps, ifake inkinga. Yiyo le nto yenza ukuthi when we don't even question, why was that system used? Why was that system stopped? Did the system work? And so on. So that's why such debates or such topics or such conversations must be encouraged within the church. That asikhulume neyouth yethu, let's allow them to question things, because some churches don't even allow youth to even question, why did we adopt this particular standard? You know, I always like to say, when we are introduced to Adam and Eve, it seems their marriage, there was no service, there was no wedding, if I may put it like that. Ukusho ukuthi kwangekho deco, kwangekho kudla, kwangekho people to attend the wedding. So as a result, this thing ukuthi sithole sifaka the culture, sifaka all these things, are just merely people trying to do or set a standard. So number one point that I've put as the reason why our youth remains unmarried is because as a church, the method of getting married that we've put as a church confuses some people. There's lack of clarity as to where the church stands. Some local churches will permit courtship, others don't permit courtship. Others are saying, well, for you to get married, you have to get married within this particular church. And others are saying, no, it's fine as long as you marry someone who is born again and who's a Christian. Now, this lack of clarity and this lack of confusion continues and hinders a lot of people from getting married. I was just looking at our method as a church, the one of saying you have to get married within this particular church. That elders and church leaders put this method because it was a way of providing a safety net, of saying, rather get married to someone within this church because of the teachings of this church. Shadala. Imfundisi iyafana. Awuzukushada umuntu ozobuya ayokhothamisa kwabanye uNkulunkulu. Awuzukushada umuntu ozobuya ayothi hayi asixube nkosikazi sibuye siyokhuluma namadlozi. So it was a method of protecting people, of saying, rather get married to someone within this church, rather get married to someone ozoba ne same belief system, someone ozokwazi ukuthi mangabe kuba neyinkinga, you know ukuthi we approaching God, our solution will be God-based. Now, is this method working for today's generation? That's what people need to know. That's what people need to assess. Now, in terms of the way people get married, we must remember that there can be arranged marriages and there can be love marriages, which means the love marriages are the ones whereby people just fall in love and then they get married. They decide. But when they get married, they are saying the vows, they are saying yes, God must bless this union, and so on. While for arranged marriages, I say arranged marriages are those whereby a context, and when you look at the Bible, it's like a context of Isaac and Rebecca, whereby the parents arranged that, no, actually, inceke asiyithume iye laphaya iyofunela uIsaac unkosikazi. That's an arranged marriage whereby other people take decisions on behalf of the couple and say, go to this place, marry this person, and arranged marriages continue till today. Arranged marriages, in fact, if you look at the stats, you will see that arranged marriages, they have a low divorce rate. While the divorce rate for other people or other countries is 50%, they find that for arranged marriages, it's between 1 to 4%. Now, arranged marriages continue till today. And why people do arranged marriages, it's also because of this belief system. They feel that if people were to marry within their own culture, within people who have the same belief system, then what will happen is that it will reduce the chances of conflict. Now, why the church has adopted this method of saying, when you marry, marry within this church, is also because they fear that outside influence, or if you marry someone, or when you are not equally yoked, what happens is when you marry someone, especially who's an unbeliever, you then expose yourself to someone who can influence you with other gods or other ways of doing things that may not be pleasing to God. In fact, when we read about King Solomon, we find that that's what actually happened to him. He ended up marrying women from other nations, and then these women influenced him to now serve idols. A wise king was now serving idols because he exposed himself. So this method is actually a method of saying, it's like a precaution of saying, let's rather limit this to people who have the same belief system. Now, it's not an arranged marriage because people confuse this with the method, yeah, Isaac and Rebecca, and say, well, how I will know that this person is my wife is because I will see this person a posisa mini posisa makamil. No, when you read the word, you will hear that it's actually Inceku who prayed to the God of Abraham and said, I will know that this is the one that I must take back to Abraham so that she can marry Isaac. It's the one ozokwenza kanje, ozophuzisa mina amanzi aphuzise namakamela. That's the method. So when Inceku prayed, Inceku Abraham prayed, he was actually trusting God to reveal this. It was not in a dream. It's not like he was sleeping and then God showed him. No, it's a method. He said, I will only know by this particular method. Now, because of this lack of clarity and this confusion, some people have even said, well, for me to know my wife, I will actually see. In fact, I'm reminded of a story whereby omunye wazobeka iBhayibheli esitulweni wathi a lady ezofika ithathe leli iBhayibheli will be my wife. Awu waqhamuka omunye umama oshadile wathi ndodana nanti iBhayibheli ulikhohlwa. Ngiyibona. So this lack of methods and how to actually find a wife, yiyo le confuse abantu to the point that I do I think when you're recording ngikhuluma ngayo le ndaba ukuthi na singakhohlwa khona abantu ababoniswayo umuntu amphupha unkosikazi wakhe. Now asikwazi ukudispute lokho because it has worked for some, but I always say that even if unkosikazi wakho umphuphile, remember it's because that's the way vele wena communicate noNkulunkulu. That's why most people abama prophets vele they've dreamt of other things. It's their way. God communicates to them through that way. Some people even God communicates to them through an audible voice. That's why I made an example this other time. I said, I know of a man of God, othi wathi ehamba eya kwi-convention, uthi yadlula imoto. Uma idlula, uthi umoya ongcwele told him, athi that's your wife. Uthi ngixake, le ntombazane ngiyophinde ngiyibone because iyadlula. Uthi uma ngifika kwi-convention nayi le ntombazana uthi I then was able to approach the elders with confidence and say, I've seen my wife, God confirmed it, and now. But still, even if uNkulunkulu uvele ukuvezele kanjani, still marriage is a choice. You chose to follow the leading of the Spirit, or you chose when to follow your heart and approached a particular woman in case of those abashada because bamthandile lo muntu wesifazane. Now, marriage will remain a choice. Gone are the times whereby abantu bethwalwa wathwalwa wayiswa lapha. There are marriages like that where a man will actually choose and say, well, Ntobo's lawyer, and then they marry against the will against their will. The women will find themselves in that marriage because a man just said, Mthwaleleni lawyer, bamthwala. Now, marriages of today, even if it was there, a man through the church system, yafika yathi my elders ngibizeleni usister banibani, it is still a choice for usister banibani to say, who is it? Okay, let me pray about it. Or another one would be like, no, let me investigate about this man. Or another one would be like, no, ngicela ithuba, and just have a one-on-one with this man while my elders are in the vicinity, so that I can address him personally and ask questions, find out his mindset or his direction. What does he want? Why efuna ukushada mina? Now, a reason why there is so much lack of clarity and our youth continues to not get married, it's because most elders or most leaders are not open to discussing this. They do not want to hold seminars with their youth and discuss this in detail to say that when we put this particular method, is it working? Is it failing you guys? No, there's no room for such. Now, this thing has exposed some of the youth to get married bayithole besemishadweni today abastuck kuyona. For instance, I know personally of a marriage that happened and people were not given enough time to even find out about the past of each other. As a result, kwatholakala ukuthi actually the guy was HIV positive, but they did not test. They did not test. They did not go and have and do a HIV test before. In fact, there was not even premarital counseling offered to them to say, let's talk about this. Let's find out about this. Now, this fear continues to hold most youth ukuthi ingashadi within the church because they are feeling like, I don't like this method. There is lack of clarity. As people in leadership, kuyisicelo ngiyanxusa that we open up time and discuss these matters with our youth, because now if we continue at this and there's so much lack of clarity, I've heard others even saying, is it necessary to even pay lobola? I'm saying, what do you mean? But no, because if usikholwa sobabili nosisi, we should why bother ngelobola? Others are even saying, why bother to even register the marriage? Because if we both agree as people, as individuals that want to get married, then why finance your register umshado? Because that's the system of the world. People, we must forever remember that we are spiritual beings in a body form, which means sisemhlabeni, siphila emhlabeni. Now, the system of the world, umthetho wala emhlabeni, requires that a marriage should be registered. So, as a result, as sila emhlabeni, umthetho wala emhlabeni, siphila under wona. Umthetho requires that you must have a birth certificate. Umthetho requires that you must have an ID document. Umthetho requires that should you get married, you must register your marriage. Whether you register it as a community of property or out of community of property or out of community of property with accrual and so on. Now, it's lack of knowledge that is holding us, and you find people wanting to live on this earth forgetting that as long as we are here on earth kunemithetho ozoyilandela yala emhlabeni. These laws, you are subjected to them. You are a spiritual being of which umntwana kaNkulunkulu usindisiwe, uyamsaba uNkulunkulu, and in fact wena ukhonza uNkulunkulu through uJesu, which is good as long ula emhlabeni. That's why even uJesu azayichaza le ndaba, echazela abafundi bakhe bethi, are we supposed to pay tax? He's like, yes. Give Caesar what belongs to Caesar and give God what belongs to God. Now, it's this confusion, and forever abantu ubona ukuthi yabaxaka lento yokuthi ngila emhlabeni, why am I registering i-marriage? You are registering i-marriage because uhlala la emhlabeni. Your name is registered in heaven as a spiritual being, but la emhlabeni you are going to be subjected to the way of la emhlabeni, which means your marriage has to be registered. Now, when it comes to indaba zamalobolo or ungaloboli, ubezwa abantu bekhuluma beze bedebate, indaba ye-culture leyo. And there are cultures ongalotsholwa khona. Uyathatha nje umuntu nishade, ni-invite abantu, sekumshado, nihambe niyoregister Home Affairs. Now, khona futhi imshado where it requires ukuthi owesilisa angaloboli, but kube owesifazane okhipha idowry. Now, bakhona futhi labo bayashada, especially in the Eastern communities. Now, bese kuba imishado la elifunekayo nje ilobolo. Umuntu wesilisa famlobole owesifazane. And this system biyenziwa ngeinkomo before. But kuthe mase introduce indaba yemali, then yaqala manje yenziwa ngani? Ngemali. Ayike sekuyashadwa, abanye banesystem ehlukile, abanye bathi 16 cows, abanye bathi 11 cows, abanye bathi umuntu esenengane kuphuka inkomo, and so on. Those are just cultural requirements that has nothing to do with the church. I-culture umuntu alokhu njani kuyo, to the point that I've heard some people when they are marrying athi umuntu but manje ngishada nomlungu. Yes, mawushada nomlungu, umlungu will still have to do the cultural way because umshado has to do with families. You are unifying these families, and the requirements zababu wakho mayesho ukuthi well mina ngicela ilobolo, then it proceeds like that. So as a church, what is our stand whereby umntwana usindisiwe but abazali bakhe abakholwa, bathi bayalifuna ilobolo? Niyayibona abazalwane? So asikwazi ukuvele sinje as a church asilifuni ilobolo, while we understand that khona abantwana abangasindiswanga nabazali babo la. So these are all the matters engithi once as a church we have these discussions, once as a church we open up room for the youth to ask, we can address these matters easily, and most people can even get married. Because you find that when you locally, there are more girls compared to the guys. When you locally, there are more guys compared to the girls. Lama local awangenelani. All this creates this confusion. And as a result, some people to even say, for me, what if the wife is not within this particular church? What then? The person I've seen, he is a God-fearing individual, but is not within this church. And we've seen examples of that. I personally have seen it, whereby we've seen people get married out of Ibandla. And once they get married out of Ibandla, we just hear one thing from the leadership: we are not going to attend that marriage. But really, is it the right way to deal with that? Is it? When we just cut those people off, is it really, really the right way? So that's why such conversations are important to do. Because I look at the example of Jacob. UJacob mangabe eshada, imethod ayisebenzisa kuLabani ithi, I will work for 7 years for Rachel. So athola ukuthi uba-tricked bamnika uleyo. Uthi I will then work another 7 years for Rachel. You see? So people try and find corners, shortcuts, and all these things, and they are using a culture yaga Israel and trying to pin it against the culture yamaZulu or amaXhosa or amaswati. They are trying, people are just trying to use the word and do this and do that. That's why what matters is for people to have clarity. As a church, we need to have these discussions. As a church, we need to be transparent to our youth and say, this is the reason why we adopted this method of saying, go first and tell the elders. We adopted this method for a fear that some people will actually go to women, baqamba mangakubo, impregnate them, and then leave them. So it's a fear-based solution that we came up with. Those abanga nakho lokho kwesaba, abangathuthumeli ukuthi no, we are worried, they continue with the method of saying, we allow the youth to courtship. Now, some churches can even say, we are better than this church because we allow this and our marriages work. Another one will say, well, we support this one of going to the elders and our method work. I've heard even people laughing and saying, hey, nina le nhlobo eshelelwayo anikwazi nokuyishelela. And the truth of the matter is, at the end of the day, all marriages right now are subjected to divorce. I do not know why. Divorce seems to be everywhere. But what is shocking is that all marriages, whether it was through the elders or you approached the lady or courtship, or you met even before getting saved, or you did not even know each other's churches, or whichever method you used, there seems to be a common thing that's happening to all marriages: divorce. You find people who are jola for 10 years, they get married after 2 years, they are divorced. Now, this fear of a divorce, this thing of what if I get married and then get divorced, is holding some people back from getting married. They are not asking themselves, what if I get married and stay married? So many people are now finding themselves unmarried, especially in the church, because of fear. There's lack of clarity, yes, but then there's fear. Some people even say, well, I saw you in a dream, and then now you must marry me. But where is that coming from? Where is that standard coming from? Because if people are talking about Maria and Joseph, we clearly hear the strategy that God uses, where he sent his angel, and the angel spoke to Maria and told her the entire plan, with Nancy plan, uzokhulelwa, uzalindodana, and so on. Iyahamba futhi ingelosi because iyazi ukuthi uMaria ubemisela ukushada noJoseph. Iyomtshela ithi Joseph ungamlahli uMaria ngoba lokho akukhulelwe kuyintando kaNkuluNkulu, kuyicebo laNkuluNkulu ukuthi kwenzeke 1 2 3. So there is never confusion. If someone says ukubonisiwe or bephupha wakuboniswa, don't worry, then give me the same amount of time ukuthi nami God should also confirm this. So there is nothing that should be holding people back, and this fear of saying, oh, nami ngilinda ukuboniswa. Uthola ukuthi insizwe ihlela ayishadi because ilinda ukuboniswa. Is that how you communicate with God? That's the question you should be asking yourself. Umuntu vele ohlale eboniswa through ama dreams, umuntu ocommunicate noNkulunkulu through that system. Or umuntu obukayo nje into ukuthi ngiyamthanda lo. Unayo yini criteria that you have of saying mina ngumuntu othanda 1 2 3, and when I look for a wife I will look for the following characteristics. Because when we read Proverbs 31, we are hearing of how Umaga Lamuel is actually training Lamuel to say, when you are looking for a wife, look for someone who is like this, who is like this, who is like this. And in that instance of Proverbs 31, we are hearing what Umaga Lamuel is actually telling Lamuel and saying, look for a resourceful woman. Look for a woman beyond our standards of looking for beauty. Look for someone who fears the Lord. Look for someone who knows about investing. Look for someone who is ngathi ngamanye amazwi umuntu okhuthele owaziyo ukuvuka ekuseni anakekele ihousehold yakhe enze 1 2 3. You know, she counts so many things. So this lack of direction in most guys is holding back people from getting married, because now some of them are even thinking, should I go for beauty? Should I go for umuntu oculayo? Should I go for umuntu osebenzayo? Should I go for umuntu onengane? Should I go for umuntu ongenangane? So as a result, people are confused. So beyond the system that is put as a church, the belief system or the value system is another reason people are not getting married. A person doesn't even know what they like, does not even know what kind of a woman attracts them. And as a result now, lento lena iyayenza ukuthi imishado ingabi khona. I've been exposed to people who have this notion that women are desperate. So I can choose any woman I like because women are desperate. No. You will be causing a problem if you are just going to choose because I really but desperate. No. Choose a woman that you love. Choose a woman that fits the characteristics that you are looking for, because character will remain. Beauty and body shape will change. That is guaranteed. So guidance should be given to men and women, because now even women now find what they are confused as to who to accept. Who do I accept? In this society where we are hearing that men are trash, how will I know which men to take? How will I know which men to say yes to? So most women are even saying, angifuni uku-approachwa incegu or umuntu oshumayelayo, because iy'ncegu ziyahlupheka. Ngathi sengiyabona sengihlupheka impilo yami yonke. So I say it's not about ukuba approached by incegu. Do you even know what kind of a man you want to lead you? Because some will say, I want a man who will love me. I want a man who's God-fearing. Are you sure? Because some are attracted to rich men. So the standards that we have, that's what we should be checking. Are they realistic? Because a man would be saying, well, ngifuna i-yellow bone, engenamntwana, esebenzayo, enemoto. Is that realistic? In this modern day that we live in, is that realistic? A woman would be saying, well, ngifuna a tall guy, a dark, enomuzi, enemoto, esebenza kahle, who's God-fearing. Is that realistic in this modern day?